She didn't hear the door click shut. Or maybe she did and just assumed it was the wind again like she always did. Either way, by the time Erin rolled over and reached for me, the bed was cold. The coffee cup I left behind was still steaming. Her favorite mug, the one that said "World's Okayest Wife," sat across from it, clean and empty. I always poured hers second. This time I didn't pour it at all. I left the thermostat on 72, just the way she liked it. Took the trash out one last time. Lined up the keys on the granite island with a precision I hadn't applied to anything in years. House, car, safety deposit box. Even left the extra for the dog sitter she never canceled, in case she needed to keep up appearances. The wedding ring? It's under the salt shaker. I figured that was fitting, considering how many nights she told me I lacked flavor. She'd find it all in about an hour, after she sleepwalked through her morning routine, still thinking I'd be back from the corner store or a jog or whatever illusion she preferred that day. She never noticed when I left the room, let alone the city. But this time was different. By the time she brewed her own coffee, because I wasn't there to do it, I was 2 hours out, crossing the state line with a backpack, 2 burner phones, and one name I would never use again. 17 years of being useful, not cherished, not loved, just used, like furniture, like the damn toaster, always expected to work, never thanked unless it broke. And even then, only because it caused an inconvenience. You want to know why I left without a fight? Without a single word? Because I'd already wasted enough breath in that house. You can scream into a vacuum for a decade and still lose your voice. The last real conversation we had, 3 weeks before I vanished, was about the recycling bin. Not the dog we'd buried. Not the fact that I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in months. Just her usual checklist of things I failed to do between being invisible and being in the way. She stopped asking how I was doing about 5 years ago. I stopped answering about 4. Funny thing is, she'll probably tell everyone I had a breakdown, a midlife crisis, that I left because I couldn't handle real life. She'll cry on Facebook and post some filtered picture of the two of us from a Christmas that wasn't happy, pretending like it was all a shock. Truth is, she's been practicing widowhood since year 10. And if you're listening to this and still with me, if you're one of those 97% who haven't hit the subscribe button yet, do me a favor, change that. It helps the team here keep going. And maybe, just maybe, it reminds someone else like me that they're not crazy. Just stuck. For now. I didn't take a single keepsake. Not the photos. Not the watch she gave me when I made partner. Not even the old leather-bound journal where I used to write down the stuff I couldn't say out loud. I'd already memorized the things that mattered. The rest? She could have it. Even the dog. Yeah, I left Buddy. He followed me to the door that morning, tail wagging like he knew something was different. Maybe he did. He always knew more than she did. But I couldn't take him. She loved that dog in the way she was supposed to love me. And I figured he'd be the one familiar heartbeat left in that house when she realized what she'd done. I didn't cry. That part always surprises people when I tell them. They expect tears, rage, a big dramatic storming out. But silence is more terrifying than shouting. Silence leaves room for the questions you can't answer. What did I do? Was it something I said? How long had he been planning this? Let her ask. Let her rot in it. Because by the time the sun touched our porch, I wasn't her husband anymore. I wasn't anyone's. I was just a man with a full tank of gas and no destination. And for the first time in 17 years, that was enough. The GPS cut out somewhere past mile marker 223. No reception. No Wi-Fi. Just the dull stretch of desert highway and a sunburnt horizon that didn't care who I used to be. Perfect. I tossed the phone into a ditch. Not just powered off, gone. It buzzed twice before landing face down in the gravel, probably from another one of her routine, just checking in texts that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with image. I pictured her tapping out one of those saccharine emojis, some smiley face she'd weaponize when she didn't want to talk about what mattered. That phone had been my leash for years. I walked away from the buzzing like it was a dying animal. An hour later, I pulled into a roadside storage facility with more dust than customers. The guy behind the counter had a limp and a voice that sounded like he'd been yelling at God for 50 years. Monthly or annual? He asked, not looking up. Monthly, I said, under the name Rick Delaney. Rick Delaney. That was the first name that came to mind. A guy I barely remembered from a high school shop class. Quiet, forgettable, vanished before junior year. Fitting. He slid me a clipboard. Unit 12B. Don't leave anything alive in there. 12B swallowed the last boxes I would ever carry from my old life. Essentials only, old tools, spare clothes, 2 thick envelopes of cash I'd saved over the past year without her noticing. She thought I was trying to fix the furnace when I was learning how to disappear. Turns out, YouTube teaches you more than how to fix a leaky faucet. I kept 1 box on the passenger seat. The black one with the lid reinforced in duct tape. Inside it, passports, burner IDs, licenses printed on real plastic. My handwriting practice sheets, dozens of them. Muscle memory takes time to lie well. The envelope marked Coyote had the address of the motel I'd scoped 6 months earlier. I'd reserved it under a fake email address using a prepaid card bought with cash. The woman at the front desk was younger than I expected. Probably late 20s. No ring. Didn't ask for mine. "How long you staying?" she asked, not judging but close. "Month. Maybe 2. She handed me the key card like she didn't care if I ever checked out. Room 6. End of the hall. No shared walls. No questions. I liked her already. Inside, the air conditioner wheezed like it hadn't been loved in decades. The wallpaper was stained at the corners, and the TV remote had duct tape instead of a battery cover. But it was quiet. Nobody called my name. Nobody expected coffee. Nobody asked if I'd filed the tax receipts from the joint account yet. I sat on the edge of the bed and just breathed. Not that nervous, shallow panic breath. Real breath. That low, full one you only take when no one's in the room with you and you don't have to pretend. That motel mattress felt like freedom, sagging springs and all. By nightfall, I had new clothes from a thrift store, a burner phone I bought 2 towns over, and the beginnings of a beard I wasn't going to shave off anytime soon. I watched the news on low volume. Not a word about me. That's the beautiful thing about being a nobody. You don't make headlines when you vanish. You just become one of those casual stories people tell over beers. Remember Dan? Wonder what happened to him. No, you don't. You don't wonder. You moved on before I even closed the front door. I practiced signing Rick Delaney 10 more times that night. Wrote it on scrap paper. Then in a notepad. Then on the DMV application I printed from the library next door. With the right cash and the right office, it's amazing how little they care who you say you are. I memorized my new birthday, July 18th, 1977. A year younger than my real one. Just enough to make me less searchable. I learned the zip code by heart. Made up a mother's maiden name. Invented a place I was from that nobody visited. Rick Delaney was born that night. The next morning, I shaved my head, bought new boots, and burned what was left of my old wallet in the motel trash can. I watched the last embers die out around 3 a.m. Arms crossed, window cracked open, ash floating like snow onto the desert floor. That was the first night I slept more than 6 hours in 10 years. Erin didn't panic at first. That's the thing. She woke up late, past 7:30, which annoyed her more than anything. No smell of coffee, no clink of the spoon in the ceramic mug, no quiet footsteps circling the kitchen like clockwork. Just stillness. She padded down the hall, yawning. Daniel. Nothing. She didn't think much of it. Maybe he went for one of his morning walks. Or maybe the grocery store. That's what she told herself as she opened the fridge, annoyed to find no creamer. Again. It wasn't until she opened the cabinet and saw only 1 mug missing, hers still spotless and untouched, that something inside her paused. Not enough for alarm. Just a hiccup of confusion. She reached for her phone. No text. No missed calls. She wandered into the garage, expecting to see his car gone. But the hooks where he always hung the keys were empty. Not just his keys. All of them. Car, house, shed, mailbox. All perfectly arranged on the counter. Too perfectly. Like evidence. When she turned to pour coffee, her elbow knocked the salt shaker. It didn't move. She lifted it and there it was, tucked under it like some ridiculous game of hide and seek. The gold band she hadn't seen off his hand in 17 years. Simple, unadorned. He never liked flashy things. Not like her. Now the breath caught in her throat. She walked back to the bedroom, opened the closet, and froze. Empty hangers. Not all of them, but enough to leave a void. The absence was louder than any scream. No travel bag. No laptop. No sneakers. Even the old flannel she hated, that stupid worn-out thing he wore when he was feeling low, gone. Vanished like the man who used to wear it. Okay? She muttered to herself, blinking hard. Okay. She called his cell. Straight to voicemail. Not even a ring. That little mechanical female voice repeated. The number you are trying to reach. like a taunt. By noon, she called his office. A receptionist answered. "Oh, hey, Mrs. Fairbanks. Daniel didn't come in today, but I figured he was just taking his personal time." "Personal time? I didn't know he had any scheduled," Aaron said. "Well, he filed it 3 weeks ago. Said he might extend it." She didn't remember that. She would have remembered that. The receptionist continued. "Said to redirect everything to Troy while he's out." "Did something happen?" "No," Aaron said. "No, it's fine. Thanks." She hung up. It wasn't fine. That night, she drank half a bottle of red and texted him a dozen times. All left unread. She tried calling again. Still voicemail. Then she checked the credit card statements. Nothing since yesterday. Gas station charge. Rural highway. That's when the crack widened. On the second morning, she didn't get dressed. Sat on the couch in her robe, scrolling through his social media like a detective looking for a suicide note. But there was nothing. No cryptic quotes. No starting over status. He never posted much. That had always annoyed her. Now it terrified her. She tried calling his brother. "He hasn't called you, has he?" "No." "Should he have?" "He's gone." "Gone like what?" "Like vacation." "Gone like everything of his is gone, including his goddamn wedding ring." Silence. "Aaron," his brother said slowly. "What did you do?" That sentence hit her like a slap. Because the implication, the default assumption, was that she did something. That she was the reason. And the truth? She didn't know what she'd done. Not exactly. Just 1,000 small cuts. Sarcasm she didn't dial back. Laughs she aimed at his expense. Dinner parties where she edited him out of stories. Times she said, "Daniel, can you not?" Like he was a child acting out. She'd filed those under marriage. Under routine. Now they felt like evidence. By the 5th day, she started lying. "He's just decompressing," she told her friends. "Getting space. Work's been insane, you know?" They nodded politely, but they were already speculating behind her back. By the 7th day, she was pacing the house at 2 a.m., whispering, "Where the hell are you?" Like it was a prayer. She didn't know yet that this wasn't an absence. It was an erasure, and he'd been planning it while she was busy talking over him, reshaping the narrative, turning him into the husband who'd be lost without her. Turns out she was wrong. She was the one who couldn't sleep. "He's having a breakdown," Aaron said over brunch, flicking her hand like she was dismissing a stray thought. Her voice carried easily across the table to her friends, who wore matching looks of polite concern masked as sympathy. "You know how Daniel gets when he doesn't feel appreciated." The last word had an acidic tilt to it, like it was meant for someone else entirely. There were 4 of them: Jocelyn, Claire, Bridget, and Lisa. All aging well, all seasoned in suburban survival tactics. Pilates, Sauvignon Blanc, selective vulnerability. "He's probably camping somewhere," Aaron added, stabbing her avocado toast. "You know, communing with his feelings." Jocelyn gave a tight smile. "That doesn't sound like Dan, though." "No offense," Claire chimed in. "But wasn't he the spreadsheet type? Camping feels." "Not him." Aaron leaned back, eyes scanning the patio like she'd suddenly become bored. "Well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe I married someone I didn't really know." "Who does?" There it was. The first pivot in her version of the story. If you can't find the facts, own the fiction. For the first week, her narrative worked. People nodded. People said, "Men are weird after 40. People offered wine, distractions, whispered gossip that could be recycled into empathy. But on the 10th day, something snapped. It was a bounced payment, of all things, the gardener. She'd written the check like always, tossed it in the mailbox. Then got a call. "Ma'am, the check didn't clear." "What?" she said, yanking open her online banking. Account frozen. Joint checking locked. Emergency savings drained to 0. She clicked into the second mortgage, just to feel like she still had some control. But the balance was paid. Not just current. Paid in full. "Transaction complete," it read. "Transfer of title initiated." Initiated where? By whom? She scrolled, clicked, tapped through PDFs until she hit the signature line. Daniel's name. Legally notarized. Dated 6 months ago. Her mouth went dry. She checked the signature 3 times. Same stroke. Same tail on the F. "Son of a B," she started. Then shut the laptop hard enough to rattle the wine glasses nearby. She dialed his brother again. "You said you hadn't talked to him?" "I haven't." "You're sure?" Look, Aaron, he said carefully. Why would he call me before you? That one stung. He did something with the mortgage. The money's gone. All of it. Sounds like he planned this. Don't be ridiculous. There was a pause. Is it ridiculous? He asked quietly. Because it sounds like you weren't paying attention. She hung up. The next day she hired someone. Not a cheap PI from the Yellow Pages. A specialist. Digital footprint tracing. Facial tracking from public cameras. Travel patterns, tax filings, identity inconsistencies. She used a burner to make the call. The man on the other end was calm. Methodical. Do you suspect fraud? He asked. I suspect something, she said. My husband vanished. I think he's hiding under a different name. Has he done this before? No. Then I'll need time. And money. She wired the deposit. 10 days later, the email came. PDF report, 28 pages long. She opened it on her iPad. Red wine in hand. Nerves wrapped tight. The subject, Daniel Fairbanks. Known aliases. None found. Digital activity. Ceased entirely 11 days ago. Driver's license. Expired. Credit trail cold. Travel, no flights. No buses. One gas station security cam, low quality, 2 weeks old. Unconfirmed. Social media. Deleted. Final line. Current location unknown. Subject appears to have removed all digital and financial trace. Subject does not exist under known parameters. She stared at the last page. The investigator had circled a quote in bold. Whoever this man was, he prepared. This wasn't impulse. It was erasure. Her fingers trembled. For the first time, the word gone didn't mean lost. It meant deliberate. The next morning, she went to the closet to grab her coat. And that's when she noticed. Her old photo albums were gone. The ones from their first years together. Their trip to Bar Harbor. The cabin in Vermont. His parents' anniversary party. All of them missing. She hadn't even realized it until that moment. It wasn't just that he left. It was that he left her with nothing of him to hold on to. Not even the lie she'd rehearsed to keep herself comfortable. The diagnostics shop sat on the edge of nowhere, sandwiched between a defunct feed store and a billboard for a law firm 3 counties over. The paint was peeling. The neon open sign flickered like a bad heartbeat. And the lot was usually scattered with sun-bleached pickups and dust-splattered SUVs waiting for someone to give a damn. It was perfect. I'd found it through a flyer thumbtacked to the wall of the motel's laundry room. Hiring, diagnostics tech cash. No BS. No name, no number, just an address. Exactly the kind of place where a man named Rick Delaney might belong. The owner, Gus, was pushing 70 and looked it. Thick glasses, nicotine-stained fingers, an oxygen tank he never actually used. First thing he said to me wasn't hello. It was, you any good at not screwing things up? I nodded. Quiet. Good with numbers. Clean record. He grunted, waved me in. That was the interview. For the first 3 months, I said almost nothing outside of yes, no, and need the 9mm socket. I kept my head down, memorized the flow of the place, who came in late, who tried to haggle, which suppliers lied about turnaround times. I found the leak in their invoicing software. Patched it. Didn't say a word. 2 weeks later, Gus pulled me into the office, handed me an envelope. Cash bonus. I checked the books. You saved me over $6,000. I blinked. Didn't do it for money. Yeah, well, he muttered. You're getting it anyway. You want more hours? Sure. That was the beginning. I started coming in early, reorganizing inventory, logging every damn bolt into a system that had never existed before. I optimized supply orders so we stopped hemorrhaging on express fees. Created a rotation schedule so we weren't burning through man-hours on idle diagnostics. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just needed to work. Needed to be invisible in motion. The customers liked me because I didn't try to charm them. Just told the truth. You're 2 weeks from a total transmission failure. Whoever did your last oil change used the wrong damn filter. Your check engine light's not broken. You are. Word got around. People liked the guy who didn't talk unless it mattered. Rick's sharp, they'd say. Quiet, but sharp. I let the name grow roots. By the 2nd year, I was the one training new hires. Gus started leaving for half-days, then full days. One morning, he wheezed out a cough and said, You ever thought about running a place like this? Sure, I said. Thought about it. Thinking's one thing. Doing's another. I can do. He studied me. You got cash. I nodded. Clean, legitimate, and in hand. He smiled for the first time since I met him. We'll talk next month. The offer came in July. He was tired, he said. Wanted to go fishing more. See his grandkids. I ain't dead yet, he joked. But I'm tired of waiting to be. I bought in for 40% upfront. All cash. No financing. No banks. That raised his eyebrow, but he didn't ask questions. He didn't want to know where a man like me got that kind of money. I could have told him the truth, that I'd been quietly liquidating our old brokerage account in micro-withdrawals for 9 months before I left. That Erin never noticed the missing funds because she never looked at the statements, just the balances. That the money wasn't hers anymore, morally or legally. But I didn't say any of that. I just said, "You got a pen?" By the end of the summer, I had keys to the building, the alarm codes, and the respect of every grease-covered kid on the floor. I didn't ask for loyalty. I earned it. You show up every day. You tell the truth. You don't screw people over. Simple rules. One client, a woman in her 60s with a car that barely held together, said to me, "You're not like the others. You look like you've lived 100 lives. And none of them were easy." I smiled and said, "Guess I'm on number 101. She nodded like she understood, even if she didn't. I kept a small apartment above the shop, bare bones, clean. Mattress on the floor. One plate, one mug, one cast-iron skillet. No pictures. No clocks. No past. Some nights I'd sit on the roof, sipping gas station coffee, staring out at the desert stretching like a graveyard of unfinished thoughts. I didn't miss her. That would imply there was something real to miss. What I missed was the idea of being seen. But that need? It faded with every oil change and brake job and diagnostic scan I ran on strangers who just wanted honesty. Rick Delaney wasn't a disguise anymore. He was who I became when no one was watching. And when you live in the undercurrent long enough, eventually, you realize you're the one pulling the tide. It was a meaningless comment. A throwaway line at a 4th of July barbecue nearly a decade ago, half-laughed over beers and fireworks while the guys debated retirement dreams. "If I ever disappear," Daniel had said, flipping a burger, "it'll be west of the river. Big sky, no questions, no noise." He'd said it to an old friend, Pete something, one of those half-present men Erin always called Daniel's human furniture. But Pete remembered. That's the thing about overlooked people. They listen better than the ones who talk. The investigator. His name was Landon, lean, dull-eyed, methodical, had chased dead leads for 6 weeks. Burner phone dead ends. Surveillance gaps. Property checks under the name Daniel Fairbanks. Nothing. But when he started digging into social circles, scanning old texts, backgrounding known associates, Pete's name popped up. And Pete, for all his aloofness, picked up when Landon called. He said, "What? West of the river. Big sky. No noise. That mean anything?" Pete was quiet. Then, yeah, it means he was serious. Erin clutched the armrest of her leather sectional when Landon relayed it. "There's a band of counties near the Western River region, largely rural, light enforcement, lots of cash businesses. Perfect place to hide. I'll compile a target map. And if he's changed his name? He probably has. But habits are hard to erase. Skills too. I'll search for anything in diagnostics, engineering, logistics, the kinds of roles he would have gravitated toward." Erin didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen island, staring at the empty chair across from her. The one he always sat in, quietly stirring his coffee with that little clink-click pattern. She couldn't stop hearing it now. Couldn't scrub it from her memory, like a melody stuck on loop. The map arrived 3 days later. Red circles. 5 towns. All straddling the desert line. 2 had local auto shops. 1 had a diagnostic center with a recent transfer of partial ownership. Paid in cash. Bingo. She booked a rental. Told no one. Wrote a note to her assistant at the firm. Taking 2 personal days. Unplugging. The kind of note she used to scoff at from other women. Now it was her lifeline. She drove alone. 6 hours. No music. Just road noise and a voice in her head, replaying every instance she talked over him. Every time she told someone at a dinner party that Daniel wasn't much for conversation. As if that was endearing. As if making him invisible was part of the marital joke. The town wasn't even on most GPS apps. Just a post office, a pharmacy, a diner with a flickering sign that said, "Pat's Eats." And next to it, a squat gray building with a cracked concrete lot and a sign that read, "Delaney Auto Diagnostics." Her heart dropped. She didn't park right away. Drove past twice, just circling, trying to breathe. The third time around, she parked across the street. Her hands were ice cold, trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. Through the dusty glass, she saw him. It wasn't the hair, shaved now, or the frame, leaner and more worn. It wasn't even the clothes, the grease-smudged work shirt that read Rick. It was the posture. That particular way he leaned forward as he explained something to the kid beside him. Calm, unhurried, like the world slowed down around him when he had a job to do. He handed the kid a tool, smiled slightly, and then turned toward the window. She ducked, heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her throat. It was him. She fumbled for her phone. Froze. What would she even say? Hey, remember me, the woman who never listened? The one who called your quiet breakdowns mood swings and made you the background noise in your own life. The door chimed behind her. A waitress from the diner walked past with a tray. You okay, hon? Erin swallowed, nodded quickly. Fine. Just tired. But she wasn't fine, because across the street was a man who had erased her so completely. He didn't even flinch when she found him, and that terrified her more than if he'd screamed. She stepped out of the car, legs weak, crossed the street slowly. The bell above the diagnostics shop rang as she opened the door. It smelled like oil and sun-baked rubber. He didn't look up at first, just kept wiping his hands with a rag. Excuse me, she said, voice small. I'm looking for Daniel. He looked up. Their eyes met. Flat, calm, blank. You've got the wrong person, ma'am. She blinked. No, it's you. It's me. Daniel, Name's Rick, he said, not unkindly, just factually, like telling someone the sky was blue. She stepped closer. Daniel, please. He turned back to the young mechanic. Can you get the alternator for Bay 3? The kid nodded and walked off without giving her a second glance. Erin stood there, breath shallow, waiting. He didn't speak again, didn't acknowledge her, didn't ask why she came, didn't care. Her hands were shaking as she backed out the door. As she stepped onto the pavement, the heat hit her like a wall, and she suddenly remembered all those years she told him he needed to get out more, like it was a character flaw, when really, she just never wanted to be alone with the silence between them. Now she had it, and it was deafening. She didn't sleep that night, not really. After leaving the shop, Erin drove in aimless loops through the town, every turn bringing her back to the same 3 intersections. The grocery, the gas station, the diagnostics shop, that damn sign, Delaney Auto Diagnostics. Clean lettering, honest design, like someone had built a life from scratch and taken pride in keeping it simple. She slept 2 hours in the rental, parked behind a shuttered video store, curled up in the passenger seat with a jacket over her knees. When the sun rose, hot and merciless, she didn't feel human. She felt exposed, like a wound under salt. By noon, she walked back in. Same oil-stained floor, same stale coffee smell, same man. He was standing near the back of the shop, clipboard in hand, gesturing toward an engine bay while a teenager scribbled notes. His voice was low, professional, precise, still the same cadence, though the inflection had shifted, like someone had turned the volume down on his soul. She cleared her throat, loudly. He didn't look, so she said it, louder this time. Daniel. The name landed in the air like a curse. He turned slowly, calm, completely unshaken. Eyes older than she remembered, sharper but colder too, as if whatever softness had once lived behind them had long since calcified. You've got the wrong person, ma'am, he said again. Same tone, same word choice. She stepped forward. Don't do this. Don't do what? This performance. His lips twitched, half amusement, half irritation. I'm not performing anything. You are Daniel Fairbanks. You're my husband. I know it's you. The young mechanic glanced up from a workbench. Another man at the back of the shop paused mid-torque. The air grew heavy. The quiet became sharp. I'm Rick Delaney, he said flatly. And if you don't have an appointment, you'll need to step outside. This isn't a waiting room. Her throat dried out. You left me. You disappeared. And now you're pretending. What? That I never existed. He tilted his head, wiped his hands slowly on a red shop towel, then folded it and set it down with surgical precision. I'm not pretending anything, he said. You're the one inserting yourself into someone else's life. Tears threatened to crawl up her throat, but she swallowed them back. She had no idea how to argue with a man who had already erased her. How do you demand recognition from someone who has completely rewritten their memory? She looked around the shop, at the confused faces, at the boy who now studied her like she was the strange one. She lowered her voice. You planned this. He didn't flinch. I prepared. There's a difference. She blinked. I don't even know who you are anymore. That's the point. Something snapped inside her. I gave you my life. No, he said, his voice calm as glass. You borrowed mine, then called it yours. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. He turned away, not abruptly, just like she didn't matter, like her presence wasn't even worth reacting to. She stood there, wobbling on heels she shouldn't have worn in this heat, drowning in silence. Then she backed toward the door, stunned, reaching for the handle like someone grasping at the end of a dream. The bell rang as she opened it. Have a good day, he called over his shoulder. Not a sneer, not a jab, just indifference. She stumbled into the sunlight, blinded by it, bent over and braced herself on her knees. The heat surged up from the asphalt. Her breath came in short, ragged bursts, like she'd just run a mile she didn't remember starting. Couple passed by, squinting. The woman whispered something, and they crossed the street to avoid her. She turned back to look through the glass. He was gone from view. Back to work, probably. Back to the life he built. A life that had no room for her. No trace of who they once were. No evidence she ever touched him or mattered. She sat in the car for over an hour, too stunned to drive. Her hands shook on the wheel, but it wasn't the fear that got her. It was the realization that this wasn't an act. This wasn't a punishment. It was a conclusion. And the face she'd looked into for 17 years, the man she used to know, used to mock, used to silence, was gone. Replaced by someone colder, smarter, free. Came on a Tuesday. No fanfare, no courier. Just a plain white envelope, typed label, stiff paper stock, professional but cold. It was in the usual morning pile wedged between a Trader Joe's flyer and another thin envelope from the divorce attorney she hadn't called back. She nearly tossed it, but something about the way her name was typed, Erin Fairbanks in that clean, utilitarian font, made her pause. No return address, no stamp, just metered postage from a town she didn't recognize. She slid a knife through the top and pulled out a set of documents. Her breath caught before she even read the header. Quitclaim deed. Her name in bold. The property listed, their house. The house. She flipped to the next page. A notarized transfer. Clean. Filed. Legal. The title now belonged to her, free and clear. No conditions. No fees. No lien. At the back, clipped loosely with a rusted paperclip, was a scanned image. A receipt from a wire transfer dated over 3 years ago. It showed the full payoff amount. The entire second mortgage, the one she thought they still owed on, the one that loomed over every major decision, every argument about vacation budgets, every line item on their yearly state of the marriage spreadsheet, was paid off long before Daniel disappeared. Without telling her, she stared at it. The account listed for payment wasn't their joint checking. It was an account she'd never seen before. She reached for her phone, dialed the mortgage service number. A polite woman confirmed it. Yes, Ms. Fairbanks. That loan was paid in full on June 19th, 3 years ago. But we've been making payments. Yes, ma'am. You've been sending monthly checks. But the account was overpaid. We've been applying it to your escrow balance. Erin hung up without saying goodbye. The final page in the envelope wasn't legal. Just a single line, scribbled in pen at the bottom of the scanned receipt. In that exact half-cursive she once mocked him for during Christmas card season. Now you own the whole illusion. Her knees gave out before her mind caught up. She dropped to the tile floor, envelope clutched like it might start burning. The silence of the kitchen swallowed her whole. No coffee brewing. No footsteps from the hallway. Just the sound of her own breath unraveling. The man she once called boring had orchestrated a disappearance so meticulous that she didn't even know which of their assets were real. She crawled to the counter and opened her laptop. Her hands trembled as she checked old passwords. The brokerage account? Closed. The savings? Zero. The safety net she thought existed, the one she'd relied on while pretending she was the architect of their life, was an empty stage prop. And now, he'd gifted her the set. Curtains, lights, and all. For weeks, she'd been telling herself this was just a phase. That he'd come home. That he'd cool off. That one day, Daniel would appear in their driveway like some penitent ghost, ready to beg for forgiveness she wasn't sure she'd give. But this was a message. Not loud, not cruel, just final. You wanted the house? Fine. Here it is. Along with the lies you told yourself about what this marriage ever meant. You want the control? Take it. Take it all. She stood up, dizzy, gripping the counter. The rooms around her looked unfamiliar. Every vase, every curated look, every piece of mid-century furniture she'd insisted on now felt like set pieces in a play that closed years ago. The illusion had never been his. It had always been hers. He'd just stepped out of it, like a man waking up from someone else's dream. And now she was trapped inside it, with every light on and no one left to clap. It had been 5 years. Erin was at the salon, flipping absent-mindedly through a glossy business magazine while her color set. The stylist was chatting about her boyfriend's dog or something equally meaningless, and Erin only half listened, her fingers turning pages in rhythm with her detachment. Headlines blurred. Something about real estate, something about green energy. And then, there he was. Page 46. A full-color photo. Crisp. Powerful. A man in a charcoal suit standing in front of a line of black and red service vehicles, bearing a clean logo, Delaney Automotive Group. The headline read, "From Greece to Gold. The man who built an auto empire from a desert garage." She stopped breathing. It was his face. Older, leaner, the beard now sharper. But it was him. No question. Not a doppelganger. Not some statistical look-alike. Daniel. She read every word like they were being fed through and for. Rick Delaney, 49, began with a single diagnostics shop in rural Arizona. Known for his brutally honest service and obsessive systemization, Delaney turned one dusty garage into a multi-state network of premium auto service centers. Her hands were shaking. The stylist noticed. "You okay?" Erin nodded. Hot flash. The stylist smiled. "Girl, same." But Erin wasn't in the room anymore. She was remembering the way he used to count bolts while talking. The way his eyes scanned every receipt twice, even at restaurants. The way he silently loaded the dishwasher with the precision of a man who couldn't tolerate randomness. All those traits she once criticized were now being praised in print. Branded. Admired. He'd used them, and turned them into something she could never touch. A quick Google search confirmed it. Rick Delaney, keynote speaker, Western Industrial Conference, Santa Clara. She booked the ticket the same day. It wasn't even difficult. The conference was open to the public. She posed as a freelance consultant. Got a badge. Wore the heels she hadn't dared to wear in years. Not for him. For herself. Or so she told herself. The venue was a sleek glass palace humming with business cards and thin smiles. No one noticed her. No one cared who she was. But she saw everything. The banners. The signage. The programs. All with his name. Rick Delaney, founder and CEO. It didn't feel like betrayal. Felt like a funeral. She found her seat in the second row. Center. She didn't blink during the opening remarks. Just waited back rigid, mouth dry. And then he walked on stage. The crowd applauded, and he smiled. But only slightly. Like a man who didn't need applause but respected the ritual. His presence filled the room without trying. She was struck by how little he needed her recognition. He clicked his remote. Spoke in measured tones. Showed slides of growth charts, team photos, blueprints of expansion hubs. People nodded. Jotted notes. She didn't. She just stared. She could have called his name right then. Could have stood up and yelled, "You left me." Could have demanded answers in front of 1,000 professionals. But she didn't. Because he wasn't pretending anymore. This wasn't a mask. This was the man. After the panel, attendees formed a line to speak with him. She waited. Not at the front. Not at the back. Just enough to be missed if she changed her mind. When he finally walked through the side hall, escorted by 2 organizers, she stepped into his path. The lighting was dim. The carpet muffled her steps. He was 6 feet away when she whispered it. "Daniel." He stopped, turned. I scanned her face. No panic, no surprise, just polite attention, like she was another potential investor or journalist. "Yes." That voice. "It's me," she said. "Aaron." He blinked once, tilted his head slightly. Then came the smile. Small, measured. "Ah." A pause. "You look well," he said. That was it. Not "how have you been?" Not "why are you here?" Not "I'm sorry." Just "you look well." As if they were nothing more than old high school classmates bumping into each other at a grocery store. She opened her mouth to say something else, but he was already moving again, nodding to the man at his side. "Schedule's tight," he murmured. "Let's keep it moving." And just like that, he disappeared into the crowd. Not a ghost, a man with purpose. And she was left standing in the glow of his success, surrounded by strangers clapping for a life that used to be hers, until it wasn't. She didn't plan to follow him. She hadn't even meant to stay past the panel. But when the hallway doors swung shut behind him, her body moved before her mind caught up. She weaved through the crowd like someone chasing a departing train, the echo of his voice still fresh in her ears. Not the words, but the tone. Calm, final, like he had already said goodbye before he ever left. She found him near the loading dock exit, just beyond the stage's rear access. He was alone, just for a moment, sipping water and scrolling his phone. The handlers had peeled off to deal with press. It was the first moment of silence she'd had with him in 5 years. "Daniel." He looked up slowly. No tension, no bracing, just acknowledgement. "Aaron." Her name sounded alien in his mouth. Neutral, like a file being accessed, not a person remembered. She stepped closer, the sound of her heels against the concrete floor echoing louder than she expected. "I need to ask you something, and I deserve an answer." He put his phone in his pocket. No eye roll, no sigh, just the kind of patience she used to wish for. The kind he used to give her before she taught him that silence was safer. "Why?" she asked, her voice cracking at the edges. "Why didn't you fight for it? For us? Why just vanish?" He stared at her for a long time, not in anger, not with pain, just a quiet kind of mercy that hurt worse than hate. She braced for a paragraph, a wound, a confession. Instead, he gave her a single sentence. "Because I was never part of your story," he said. "I was just the furniture." And then he turned, walked off with the same steady rhythm she remembered from every morning he used to leave for work. Except now, every step sounded like closure. A door swung open at the end of the corridor and swallowed him whole. Beyond it, applause erupted again. A voice over the speaker announced, "Rick Delaney, keynote speaker and founder of Delaney Automotive Group." The crowd roared, people clapped, cameras flashed, and she stood in the dim corridor, alone, surrounded by echoes of a name that wasn't hers and never had been. No one noticed her leave. No one asked her name, and he never once looked back.